Hello, hello, welcome back, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yay! More confetti, more confetti. Happy 2025. Oh my goodness, our first episode of 2025. Can't even believe it.
I
Episode
know.
number 36. Welcome.
Good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. I missed you. We
I
missed our
know.
recording last week and it feels like forever.
I know.
It was only a week, but
It was only a week, but it's
I
been too
know.
long.
I'm having a Teresa withdrawals.
It's been way too long. Nice to be back with
Exactly.
you.
So good to be back with you too. And welcome back to all of our viewers and listeners. My name is Anne McCabe. I am the CEO and a partner here at Curo Private Wealth, joined as always by my lovely partner, Teresa.
Hello, I am Teresa Roberts, COO and partner here at Curo.
Yes. And today we have a fun episode planned for you. We are going to share how we individually, personally, kick our year off strong. We both have some traditions that we have developed over the years that we want to share with you, both in terms of winding down the old year and then welcoming in the new year. So we will share some tips and tricks and with you on that. But before we do that, we definitely have to do an ATM catch up because it's been a while. So holiday season, how
Yeah.
did everything go? How are you feeling? Ready for 2025?
Yeah, the holiday season was nice. It went by so quickly,
Mm-hmm.
though. I just feel like the last 2 weeks were just warp speed. But
Yeah.
it was nice. I got a little bit of some time away. Well, technically, time we stayed. So it was a
Yeah.
staycation that my sister and I did for Christmas that we shared together. But it was nice. We were in DC, but we stayed in a hotel like we were visitors,
Yeah.
like we were traveling. But it was great to have some just a little bit of downtime. And then of course the new year is always, I think, a mad dash to the finish for us here at work. But I'm really, really excited about 2025. We got some good things that we're planning and conceptualizing. So I'm excited by it. So it's been good. Some, holiday event stuff that was nice to get dressed up for, but now it's all over and January is upon us.
Yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
man, year end was
Mm.
bananas for us. I mean, we had some last minute
I mean, down to the wire.
down to the wire, like praying that all of the gods of the various organizations that have to help us get things through the finish line would actually get it done. I mean, it was wild. So, yeah,
Yeah.
as you know, I got away too with
Mhm.
Wally for the last few days of the year, but I absolutely had my laptop and
I
I was
know.
absolutely like, I'm sorry, but
I know, and I
these
felt so
things.
bad. I didn't wanna be sending you emails, and I was like, "Oh, but I gotta loop Ann in on this one."
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's kind of one of those things that we've been in this industry for long enough
Mhm.
that we know that the week between Christmas and New Year is not uh yeah, it's not boring for us. It's not
No,
quiet. It
no.
I wish we were one of those companies that could like completely close shop between Christmas and New
Yeah.
Year's. We're just probably never going to be that.
We're never
So,
gonna be that. There are too many things that have a year-end deadline for us, and no matter how many times you say you're gonna get ahead of it and you try to get ahead of it with clients, it never fails. Every year, there's gonna be something that comes down to the last possible miracle working moment, so
yes, exactly. Exactly. So, but I had a really nice Christmas with the
good.
boys. My kids told me it was the best Christmas ever, so
Oh,
that I know. So I was like, "All right, that's great." It only means though the bar is like
right,
super
now
high
the
for
bar
next
is
year. I'm like,
set,
"Oh,
right.
we can't have the best Christmas ever every year, or maybe we can."
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a good goal. But yeah, great time with the family and nice getaway with Wally, which was really great. We went out. We stayed kind of local-ish too, but went out to the Middleburg area, so we felt like we were a little bit away and without the kiddos, some adult time, which is always nice. So it was great. But we were like in bed watching a movie at 10 o'clock on New Year's Eve. We
Oh,
did make it past midnight,
definitely
but
I was
yeah,
definitely on my couch on New Year's Eve.
yeah.
I could not muster the strength to go do anything. So,
Yeah,
no
exactly.
judgment.
So No, I mean, this is this is hashtag adulting.
I know. And then by make it to midnight, I mean, I made it literally to like 12:01. I
Yeah,
texted my sister and my friends and then immediately went to
went to
bed.
bed. Yeah, exactly. You're better than me. I didn't even text anybody. I was just like, "All right, we made it. Lights out." So, I did learn from my 12-year-old that, you can actually schedule text messages. I didn't Did you know this?
I think I know it, but I think it's on the iPhone update, and you know I still have like
Oh.
the
Oh,
oldest
yes.
iPhone of life.
Let's not
I'm
even
going to
go
get a new one
there.
this weekend, I promise.
Good. Good. I will hold you accountable to that because it's ridiculous. But anywho, yeah, he taught me because he was both my kids were actually sick, unfortunately, and,
Oh, I'm
so he was
sorry.
like, "I'm" yeah, it's fine. They're pretty much over it now, but, he was telling me, he was like, "I'm tired, I'm going to bed," but he's like, You better believe I'm scheduling my text messages for Happy New Year's at midnight." So on the dot midnight, I got a Happy New Year with, the New Year
That is
emojis, and
so
I was like, "All
fantastic.
right, that's, I didn't even know you could do that." So, the things we learn from
Yeah,
my kids.
yeah.
But
Good to know
it
though.
was yeah. Now we know. When you get your new phone, you can practice
Yeah,
on,
I'll practice.
scheduling text messages. All right, so let's get into our topic for today. Our goal is always to inspire, educate, empower. So we thought we would share with you all some of our traditions for how we start our year off strong. So let's start with actually the previous year and how we kind of wind down the old year before we talk about how we prepare for the new year. So, what are some traditions or kind of habits that you've implemented in your life, Patricia, at the end of the year? It also happens to be your birthday. So I'm sure there are some birthday traditions as well as year end, but what do you do to kind of wind down the year?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this before. December is always very reflective for me because of that, because of a birthday being 2 weeks before the end of the year, literally. So it's always a time when I go back and I try to take inventory of all of the things, because the years go by so fast now. And sometimes it's easy to lose track of or lose sight of all of the things that you've overcome, even if they were challenges that you faced them and you made it through them and how you made it through. So the inventory of that reflection is always really helpful. And to also try to remind yourselves of the wins, right? The things that you did really, really well. And I also think it helps to set goals for the next year, right? This is something that went really well for me. How can I make it be as good again, if not better? So reflection around the end of the year, I think, is always really important. And then just from a tradition perspective, I think this is a Southern tradition, maybe. So not all listeners may relate to this, but leading up to the end of the year, it's always really important to clean. Right. So when I was growing up, it was a thing in my house and in my family where you clean things up. There's this idea of cleaning up things from the past year, right? You don't want to go into a new year with the old stuff, right, from the year before. So even a physical manifestation of that, cleaning up your home or cleaning out your car. You want to clear things out to make space for the new year, which is very important. So for like, the last few days of the years is that kind of thing. Like, do I need to clean out my closet? Are there things that I can donate? You want to kind of get rid of and clean out so that you can make space for the new things in the new year. So that's what the last few days of the year were spent doing for me, was that sort of like clearing out of things. Like, what can I clear out? What can I rid myself of? So that I make more capacity for what the new year has to hold.
I love that. I thought you were about to say you eat black eyed peas because that
I
is a
do, but
very
that's a New Year's Day
I
thing.
know. I know.
But leading up, like closing out the last year, but then definitely on New Year's Day in lots of Southern and I think maybe even Black American families, there are things that you're supposed to eat. So you eat peas for luck. And then you have some sort of a dark leafy green that represents money in the year. And then sometimes, like we eat cornbread that's supposed to represent like bricks of gold. um and then I don't know what this one is related to, but it was always you wanted to eat like poultry or some bird that flies, so like chicken or turkey or something of that nature, birds with wings. I don't know the history of that one. But yeah, so I did make sure that we had peas and collard greens and cornbread. And my sister had turkey for the new year so that we could have all of our lucky things in place for 2025. My grandmother would be very proud of me.
Yes, very proud of you. Definitely. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, what
That is
about you?
awesome. I do something very similar in terms of reflecting on the year, and I actually list the highlights from my year, and I love looking back because I have them kind of categorized by calendar year, and I love looking back too on previous years and just seeing what were the highlights. So I always try to do this from memory. I just kind of sit down and I mean, I type it in the computer. I don't write it on paper, but I type it in the computer and I just try to remember like what are the things, what are the trips, what are the experiences, what are the accomplishments that I just remember off the top of my head from the year. And then I actually go back to my photos and I look at photos, from January through December, which always kind of jogs my memory and makes me remember, different highlights that I may not have naturally thought of initially. And then I also go back to the calendar and just again see were there any, trips or people that I met, things like that. And then I also list books that I read for the year because I also like going back and just seeing books that I read throughout the year. So that's something that I love doing at the end of the year. And then I started recently doing this thing called a Wheel of Life that is a great reflection tool, but it's also, to your point, really powerful to kind of get your brain going, thinking about what do you want your goals to be for the next year? Where do you think maybe you're falling short a little bit, or where are areas of your life that are maybe not as fulfilling as others? So, what you do in this wheel of life is you rank different areas of your life between 1 and 10 based on how fulfilled you feel in these areas. So, the areas that you rank are career, financial, personal growth, spiritual, health, fun and leisure, romance, family and friends, community, and home environment. So this is, yeah, meant to be a nice exercise to not only reflect, but also help you focus on, okay, maybe my financial situation, I'm grading at a 2 or 3. What's one thing that I can do to try to improve my financial position, for example, or whatever that is. So I started doing that, fairly recently, and that's a fun exercise. I also think yeah, I think it's a good thing to do maybe like quarterly throughout the year, not just once per year, because again, helps you really focus on where are those areas where you're maybe not feeling as fulfilled as others.
Right. No, that's great. I love the wheel of life. Goal setting is really important for me too. And I think I've also mentioned this, but I'm a vision board person. And I'm changing that a little bit this year with my friends. I know they get so annoyed with me when I make them do these things. But I think integrating that wheel of life ranking might be something nice to
Yeah.
help you do like an assessment, right, of where you are and what areas of your life you could improve, and then start creating some goals for how to improve them. So thank you for that idea.
Yes, absolutely. Happy to share. Happy to share. All right. So now we've kind of tied a bow on the previous year. What sorts of things do you do for the new year? First of all, do you believe in New Year's resolutions? This is kind of a controversial topic, I feel like, but what's your stance on New Year's resolutions?
um I wouldn't say I believe in them, because I think they almost set you up for failure, because people always go into the new year with these like big grand deal, like I'm going to work out every day all year. You're not.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So I think it just kind of sets you up for failure when you think of it that way. So I am more in favor of setting smaller, like smaller little goals, or maybe even the goals over smaller time periods. So I don't think of them as 2025 resolutions. Like, so for example, this month, right, for January, I want to make sure that I'm doing some physical movement at least 5 times a week. I don't think of that as a New Year's resolution. It's my January goal, right? Because I feel like if you start to do them in smaller little increments, then they become bigger things that then just become part of your lifestyle. But when you challenge yourself with these huge resolutions, it sounds even big, right? Like you've resolved to do this thing for the year. It usually just ends up with disappointment or failed resolution because they were just too big to begin with.
Yeah.
But what's your stance on
A
resolutions? Do you
hundred
like them?
No, I don't. I'm
Okay.
100% in the same camp. I think, they don't work. I mean, if you look at the statistics and even observing, it's funny, the gym parking lot at the beginning of the year, right? I'm not kidding, like January 1st, January
Mhm.
2nd, completely packed. By January, like 5th, 6th, major wind down in the amount of
Right.
cars that are there. And then literally by the second week of January, it's like back to normal, amount of people at the gym. So I totally agree that they set people up for failure. I love the idea of setting goals, but I also think that setting habits around those goals and identifying, so to your point, I'm going to, move 5 times a week. It's not just this is my goal, but it's like what do I have to do? What are the habits that I need to put in place to be able to achieve that goal? And I think it's really important to identify those and then commit to those, write them down wherever you write down your goals, because it's not just like I want to become healthier or I want to lose weight. It's like, what am I going to do to achieve that goal? So I know you're reading Atomic Habits, right? This is very much one of the things
Yes.
that he talks about in that book is the kinds of habits of the people that you want to be, which goes back to the goals that you want to achieve. So totally in the same boat.
Yeah. But usually what I do is I try to think of those things that I know I need to change just to get me from to get me out of the red, if that makes sense. So for example, 2024 was a lot of just sort of hurried pace all the time. I felt like I was just jumping back and forth from one thing to the other, never completing things or not completing them well. And we've talked about this before. So in order for that to be different for me this year, what kind of things do I need to do? So that's the way I think about them and how I set the goals for 2025. So you and I have talked about time blocking, right? Even to the point of putting an actual lunch block on my calendar. So I remember to eat during the day or that I take a moment for a breath. So then it's starting to come up with those kinds of habits or those goals that help make 2025 be better than 2024 was. That's usually the way that I start. Like, what was the challenge for me in 24, and what can I do to make it better in 25? I also, fell off the wagon with my fitness in 2024 because of that hurried pace and not making time for the things. So that's how that sort of goal of moving at least 5 times a week in some way and not giving myself the big challenge to say, oh, it's got to be Orange Theory, right? 5 times a week, but just doing some physical activity. That could be a walk, that could be a 15-minute yoga stretch or something, but at least 5 times a week I'm doing something to physically challenge my body. So that's sort of where I start with the goal setting for the new year.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. So, as you know, I like to come up with a theme or a
I
word
love this.
for my year. I started doing this years ago in lieu of New Year's resolutions when the light bulb finally went off for me that like New Year's resolutions don't work because I used to be a resolutionist,
Hmm.
but now I am not. And so, yeah, so I think about a word or a theme. And as I have shared with you many times, I failed miserably with my word in 2024. My word was
What?
space. And I wanted
Hmm.
like space in my calendar, space to think, space to be creative, etc. I had no space in 2024. So instead of originally I was like, okay, well, why don't I try that word
Right, so
again?
you
And
can
then
use
I'm
space
like,
again.
no, not gonna set myself up for failure again because
Okay.
we have a lot of big goals and
Yes.
we have a lot of things going on, and I think it's probably not realistic that I'm going to necessarily have space in my calendar. But I wanted to have the same sort of spirit of that word, and so one of the ways that I kind of come up with my word for the year, my theme for the year is I like you reflect on the year, what's not really going well, what do I really want to focus on for next year. And then I start just brainstorming, almost like listing words that they could be. And I try to kind of narrow them down to two or three. And then I sit with those words for a few days to see what feels like the right word. So my word for 2025 is essential. And I think it is perfect because it is not necessarily, having a ton of space, but more so being super vigilant about making sure that everything that I'm doing when I'm doing it is essential for the big goals that I have. And so I even wrote a note to myself on a little sticky that's on my computer that says, "Is this essential?" Like I want to
Oh,
be
I
asking
love that.
myself, yeah, at every moment, is what I'm doing right now essential? And it may not be essential today. It may be essential tomorrow, but then I should not be doing it today. So
Right.
I love my word, and I think it is going to be more easily attainable for
Yeah.
this year than the space word was last, with the same sort of spirit of what I was going for last year.
Yeah, of course. And I had to come to a realization, I think, over the last year that in an ideal world, we would have all the time to sit and reflect and still get all the things done. And we are just not, and I say we, me and you, we are just not in a place in our firm, in our career, even in our personal lives where we can just say, oh, you know what, I'm going to take an hour, right? There are just things we have to get done. And even more so with you managing our team, our firm, as well as a family, right? So I think that realizing that and saying, hey, things are just going to be busy for a while, right? And I love the expression getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. And I think your word is about that, right? Just embracing that it's going to be a little uncomfortable for a while, but how do I make it better for myself in this sort of time of and not that things aren't going well, things are great, but when you have so much to do all the time, it's like how do I make myself comfortable in the chaos? And I think
Yes.
essential is a good word for that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just being aware that when you have really big goals, that you're gonna be busy,
Yes.
you're gonna be busy, it's gonna be a little crazy,
Yeah.
and I think the key is to allow it to be crazy without completely depleting our batteries to a point that we become ineffective, right? And that is a balancing act that we have to be careful, a tightrope that we have to be careful to walk, because if we completely deplete our batteries, we're no good to anybody. So we need to be really aware of how we're doing from an energy standpoint, because we need to show up for our team, we need to show up for our clients, we need to show up for our family. So we're no good to anybody if we're completely depleted. So I think that's the goal this year, is to kind of walk that tightrope better.
Yeah, I like that. Now, I don't usually come up with a word or a theme, but now I feel challenged. And there's
Ooh,
some things percolating in my brain, but I
all
don't want to
right.
declare the word yet. So,
No,
by
that's
our
okay.
next episode, I'll be prepared to share my word or theme for 2025.
I love that. Awesome. That sounds great. I look forward to hearing about it. All right. So, how do you set goals? So, we've talked a little bit about kind of reflecting on the last year, thinking about maybe where we want to focus. Anything specific that you do in terms of goal setting for the new year?
Yeah, so this year I actually have a new idea. I think I mentioned it once before, but I've added on to it. So this year I want to treat it like a game. I realize that I am motivated by things that feel like challenges, right? When I feel like I've been challenged, I'm a competitive person in that way. So this year I want to make it a little fun. So rather than just having a list or a vision board, we're going to create a bingo card, and the bingo card is just going to list small goals. So, not those really big ones, but just small things that I want to accomplish. And every time I get bingo, I treat myself to something. So, that's the challenge for this year with my visions. And then I'm also introducing the idea of champagne goals. And this is something that I actually want the two
Ooh,
of us to
you
do
have
for
my
our firm
attention.
as well. That I want the two of us to do for Curo as well, where those really big goals, right? The really big ones, the things that almost feel impossible, like you know you can do them, you just know it's going to take a lot to get them there. You actually write that goal on a champagne bottle. And when you achieve it,
Mm.
you pop the bottle and you toast to the goal. So my smaller goals will be on a bingo card where I can give myself small treats throughout the year for when I hit bingo. And the bigger ones will be champagne goals where the goal will be written on a champagne bottle. And when I do the thing that I thought I couldn't do, then I get to at least toast myself with a nice bottle of champagne.
Oh my god, I love that. You have me with both. So, it's so funny, the bingo card. I remember you mentioning that on the
Mm-hmm.
podcast weeks ago, and I was like, that
Mm-hmm.
is such a great idea, because I'm also a vision board person. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't do a new vision board as frequently as you do. But I too am going to do the bingo card for my,
Nice.
yeah, for more so goals and habits, because I think
Right.
again it goes back to making sure that we're doing the habits to get to the goals, right?
Yes.
So, we can definitely update each other
Yeah.
on our bingo cards because I thought that was such a creative idea, and I'm competitive also, and I love checking the
Mhm.
boxes off, and so
Mhm.
it seems, and it also just kind of gamifies it, which I think is
Right.
an effective tool also. So,
Yeah. And it's
yay,
a
we
way
both
to
have our
keep it
bingo
in
cards.
front of you, right? Because you
Yep.
make a list of goals and then the list goes into a journal somewhere or a notebook somewhere. And by actively feeling like you're participating in this game around your
Yeah.
habits and goals, it keeps it front of mind, I think.
Yeah, for
At least I
sure.
hope.
No, I love that. I hope so
TBD.
too. Well, TBD. We'll report back. But yeah, I love that. So I'm doing the bingo card this year
Mhm.
also. The only other kind of tip I have around setting goals is I think the simpler the goal, the better, and also making sure to attach a habit to a goal. So what sorts of actions am I going to take to try to achieve this goal? But I also like categorizing goals just to kind of organize them. So, what are my health goals? What are my family goals, my business goals, spiritual goals? And then what are those activities or habits that I'm going to implement to try to achieve those goals? So that would be my other tip. And then third, to your point about you write down your goals the beginning of the year and then you put it in a journal somewhere. I think it is super important to pull out your goals at the end of every month and just spend 10-15 minutes looking at your goals, visualizing, what it's going to feel like when you attain them, assessing, are these still important goals to me? Am I off track with any of them? And if so, why? Do I need to tweak something, pivot, that kind of thing? Because otherwise, you're going to go the entire year and not look at your goals until the end of the year. And that really doesn't do you any good. So, really carving out some time at the end of every month or the beginning of every month to look at your goals, put them in front of your face, and make sure that they are still applicable. And, just it's a good way to kind of remotivate yourself on a regular basis to work on your goals.
Yeah. Another, and I haven't done it, but another good tip that I heard from someone is that they actually write some of their goals out in the Notes app on their phone. And then they
Mm.
take a screenshot of it and then make it their lock screen on their cell phone.
Ooh,
So every
yeah,
time they pick up, because you pick up your phone multiple times a day, every
right.
time they grab their phone, this is like a reminder, right, that there are goals that you're working toward. I thought that was such a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great idea. I've heard of people doing that with their vision board. So they'll take a picture of their
Mhm.
vision board and then make it
Make it the
their
lock
lock screen.
screen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they see it all the time. So, love that. All right, any other unique things you do specifically in January?
Well, I do a dry January. Um, in previous years, I've also done a fast. It's called the Daniel fast, where it's like a combination of a vegan diet meets Whole 30, right? So no processed foods, meat, dairy, sugar. This year, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to push it back only because I have travel coming up in about a week and a half, and it would just be impossible to do while I'm traveling. So my January is technically going to be damp this year, but it's only damp because my while I'm traveling, I will allow myself to have wine, but no other time. I'll be dry otherwise throughout the year. But while I'm traveling, I will allow myself to have wine, and then I'm going to extend it a week into February to make up for the week of my travel. So I will still get 4 full weeks of no alcohol. So that's why I'm calling it damp January this year, but I do like a dry January. And then I also like detaching myself from the things that I feel like are bad habits for me. So, and this sounds so crazy for some people, I'm sure, but DoorDash. I am a DoorDash addict, especially on nights when you're working late. I can order it from the office and have it meet me at the house. So I have deleted DoorDash from my phone for January. There will be no door dashing for the month of January. It'll also save me a ton of money because you overpay for takeout when you have it delivered anyway. So that's another thing I like
Yes.
to do. If there's any other sort of bad habit thing, I would say delete TikTok, but they're gonna ban it in a couple weeks anyways. So TikTok takes care of itself this year.
Yeah.
But any of those kind of things that I feel like are just really bad habits that you don't even need. Like I'm just being lazy. So I've deleted DoorDash for the month of January. We'll see if I even put it back.
Yeah. I love that. So
Yeah.
very
So what about
similar.
you?
So I do a dry January. I also make a couple exceptions. One exception is I work in art show with my dad every year in Baltimore, and my dad is 89. And he and I go out for dinner after the show and always, have some wine together. So I always make an exception for that. And then we also do a no spend January. So this means we, as a family, yeah, and we incorporate the kids in this. We don't spend money on anything discretionary. So we do allow the kids to spend Christmas money because they got Christmas money from, family members and things. So we incorporate that as kind of part of Christmas, but we don't spend any money on, discretionary eating out, clothing, things that we don't absolutely need. We obviously continue to buy groceries. But so for example, usually Friday night we do like a order in pizza and movie night with the family. And so this weekend we're actually going to make pizzas. So we're going to go to the grocery store and buy the ingredients to make pizzas. Yeah, so we'll still have the pizza kind of tradition, but we're not ordering it. We're going to make it ourselves. So things like that. But I think it's really important after a very heavy spend December, which the holidays always end up being, to just kind of take a pause. And, for me, it's about especially my kids and us being content with what we have. Like we have enough. We are enough. We don't need more and more and more all the time. And also, it's good to put yourself in uncomfortable situations sometimes. I think that's part of growth, is being outside of your comfort zone. And this is a good self-inflicted exercise. So the kids hate it, but it's good for them. Maybe one day they'll look back and appreciate it. Um, and then the other thing I'm doing is at night, especially, one of my kind of mindless activities is just to hop on social media. And I just don't want to spend as much time on social media for many reasons. And so I've made kind of a commitment to myself that when I grab my phone and want to get on social media, I'm going to, read something interesting, read an article or read the
Hmm.
news or read something financial related versus just kind of mindlessly hopping
Right.
on
Doom
social media.
scrolling, doom
Yeah,
scrolling on
doom
social
scrolling,
media.
exactly. So that's the third thing I'm gonna focus on, in January.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
The no spend, I'm trying to decide, could I do that? I
of
should
course
do
you could.
that.
Of
I
course you
should
could.
do it.
DoorDash is probably, like,
Oh,
a big part of
that's
your no s
30% of the expenses.
Exactly. So you're a big chunk
I'm
of the
well
way
on my
there.
way. Well on my
Exactly.
way.
And now
Well
you're
on my
doing
way.
Rent the Runway, so you can
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like you have new clothes without having to buy new clothes.
Yeah. No, that's
I
fantastic. Oh,
think you
yeah, I
should do it.
definitely am not buying shoes, clothes, gadgets. I'm definitely not buying any of that. My credit card should probably be burned at this point with with the way December went.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I will do my best to try to commit to that too, just for the sake of my financial plan.
Yeah,
I've got to take a break.
exactly. And it's a fun game. Like, I love just seeing how much more I can save in January by not
Yeah,
spending, discretionary, money. So
yeah.
I kinda make it a game too. Maybe that could be a square on our bingo card.
Oh yeah,
There you
like
go.
it.
There you go. All right. Well, anything else to add, Teresa, on kind of making this year the best it could possibly be?
I think we've shared some of our tips and tricks, but of course, if our listeners and viewers have ideas, things they like, feel free to share them with us. I'm always curious with what people are doing to get their New Year's off to a good start.
Yes, exactly. And on that note, we would love to hear from you. So, yeah, whether it's a comment or a question, we have an email box set up just for the podcast. So that email address is podcast@curoprivatewealth.com. So please send in your comments, questions. If we answer one of your questions on the podcast, we will send you an Amazon gift card as a thank you. And also, friendly reminder to leave us a rating, a review. Maybe you can pop some of your advice in a review for other viewers and listeners to hear. But we appreciate all of your support and we look forward to bringing you awesome content in 2025. Any closing thought for the folks today, Teresa?
Just make it a good one, right? Just focus on the things that make you better than you were last week, last month, last year. Take it in small bites. Rome wasn't built in a day. Be patient with yourself and, baby steps forward. That's what we're doing this year.
Yeah, I love that. And I would add in goal setting, I think it's also really important to try to think about what can go wrong and almost pre plan, have a contingency plan for what may go wrong. Because at the beginning of the year, we're all motivated. It's a new year. There's this like wonderful, fresh start feeling that we all have. But, then February and March will come and June will come and July will come. And so think about how are you going to keep that motivation going? And what are you going to do when things get in your way, which inevitably they
Right.
do. So have a game plan for that.
Right. And just remember that even if you fall off the wagon, if there's a derail, you can always course correct. You can always
Yes.
course correct and get back on.
Yes. We are not looking for perfection
No.
here. No perfectionism here. We both got rid of that,
Yes,
hopefully.
a
We're
long
working
time
on getting rid of it. Work in progress. All right, y'all. Well, thank you again for joining us. Happy, happy, happy New Year. Happy 2025. We look forward to joining alongside you in this journey we call life. Thank you so much for your support and tuning in. And until next time,
live richly.